It starts like a spy movie, but it's not fiction. In the early Cold War, the U.S. government became terrified of one question. What if an enemy could control a human mind like a remote control? Not just persuade people, not propaganda, actual control, breaking someone, rewriting them, turning them into a weapon. That fear didn't stay on paper. It turned into a real program with a name that sounds like a code word from a thriller, MKUltra. Here's the first hook. MKUltra wasn't one experiment. It was a system spread across universities, hospitals, prisons, and safe houses. And many of the people involved didn't even know they were part of it. Some participants thought they were getting medical treatment. Some thought they were volunteering for harmless research. Some were drugged without consent. And this is why the story still feels like a conspiracy. Not because it's a rumor, but because parts of it were deliberately hidden, and a lot of evidence was later destroyed. Picture a man walking into what looks like a normal clinic. White walls, polite staff, calm voices. Nothing scary. But the goal behind the door is not healing. The goal is to see how far the human mind can be pushed before it collapses, and what happens after it does. In the 1950s, intelligence agencies obsessed over the idea of brainwashing. There were stories, some true, some exaggerated, about prisoners of war being mentally broken. Whether the threat was real or inflated, the response became very real. If mind control was possible, the U.S. wanted it first. MKUltra explored many methods, but one became infamous. LSD. It was new, powerful, unpredictable, and terrifying if used as a tool rather than a drug. Imagine being dosed and having no idea why reality suddenly changed. Imagine trying to act normal while your senses betray you. Imagine being questioned or observed in that state. Now the second hook. MKUltra didn't only test drugs. It tested isolation, sleep deprivation, sensory manipulation, hypnosis, and other ways to disorient a person. The core idea was not make someone tell the truth. It was often the opposite. Break the mind, erase certainty, then see what can be rebuilt. Some experiments happened in official-looking research settings. Others happened in places that sound like pure noir. Safe houses where people were watched through one-way mirrors, where drinks might be spiked, where strangers were used as tools in setups that felt staged. This is not a comfortable detail, but it matters. The program wasn't just looking for information. It was exploring control, compliance, and vulnerability, like treating humans as mechanisms to be tested until failure. At this point, a question becomes unavoidable. If a government funds something like this, who gives permission? Who writes the rules? And who says stop? Here's where MKUltra gets darker. Oversight was weak, secrecy was strong, and in secret programs, the moral line tends to slide. You stop asking should we, and start asking can we? The third hook is the scale. MKUltra involved many sub-projects, not one lab, not one city. It was scattered, compartmentalized, and structured so different pieces could exist without connecting into one obvious picture. That's how secret systems survive. Everyone handles a small part, and nobody holds the whole map. And then there's the human cost, the part that makes this more than history. Some people walked away traumatized. Some lost trust in their own memory. Some lost years of their lives to confusion, paranoia, anxiety, and psychological damage. One of the most discussed cases connected to MKUltra is Frank Olson, a U.S. Army scientist who was secretly dosed with LSD and later died after falling from a hotel window. The details are complicated and debated, but the central fact remains disturbing. A government-linked experiment involved dosing someone without consent, and the outcome ended in death, even if you ignore every rumor and focus only on confirmed elements. That alone tells you how reckless the culture could become when secrecy was the priority. Now here comes the fourth hook, the one that makes people angry when they hear it. A lot of MKUltra documentation was destroyed. Not lost, not misplaced, destroyed. That changes the entire story because it means what we know is only what survived. Imagine trying to understand a fire by studying the ashes, while someone quietly removed the biggest pieces of evidence. So how did the public learn about it at all? Because secrets rarely die cleanly. They leak, they resurface, they get dragged into daylight by investigations, hearings, and paperwork that didn't get burned in time. In the 1970s, after scandals shook public trust in intelligence agencies. Investigations began exposing covert programs. MKUltra was one of them. The revelations didn't come from a single hero uncovering the truth in one dramatic moment. They came from a slow, ugly process, surviving documents, testimony, fragmented records, and the realization that a program this serious had been running for years, with minimal public awareness. The fifth hook is psychological, and it's the reason MKUltra still fascinates people today. The scariest part is not a single experiment. The scariest part is the concept of ordinary institutions becoming tools for secret goals. Universities, hospitals, research grants, clinical language. The same structures that usually represent knowledge and care can be turned into camouflage. This is why MKUltra is different from internet conspiracy content. You don't need aliens. You don't need hidden planets. You only need a government, a fear, a budget, and the belief that the end justifies the method. And here's the uncomfortable twist. The program didn't need to succeed at mind control to be terrifying. Even partial success at disorientation, coercion, and psychological breakdown is enough, because the purpose of power isn't always to create a perfect puppet. Sometimes it's simply to create confusion, fear, and vulnerability. Conditions where control becomes easier. Another hook, think about what this did to trust. If people believe research institutions can hide secret experiments, it poisons the relationship between the public and science. Even decades later, that damage doesn't vanish. One secret program can create a shadow that makes every legitimate institution look suspicious. But there's a final hook, and it's the most important one. MKUltra shows a pattern. When a government believes the threat is existential, it may authorize actions that would be unacceptable in normal times. The phrase national security becomes a master key that opens doors that should stay locked. So the story of MKUltra isn't only what happened back then. It's a question aimed at every society now. When secrecy and fear combine, who protects the individual? Who draws the line? And what happens when the line is drawn in disappearing ink? MKUltra is real, documented, and officially acknowledged in its existence, but the full picture will never be completely known, because parts of the record were destroyed by the people who created it. And that is the final chill. Sometimes the most powerful conspiracy is not the one hidden perfectly, it's the one hidden badly, revealed partially, and then erased, leaving just enough proof to confirm it happened, and just enough missing pieces to keep the public wondering what else was done in the dark.